Hello, friends. Welcome to our channel where stories speak English. Listen and focus on words to improve your English. Let's start the story. Once, in a small village, there lived a young girl named Emma. She was 14 years old, with bright eyes and a curious mind. She loved asking questions about the world and dreamed of learning everything she could. However, Emma's family was poor, and they couldn't afford to send her to school. Instead, Emma spent her days helping her mother in the fields and her evenings reading old books she borrowed from a neighbor. One day, while walking through the village, Emma saw an elderly woman struggling to carry a basket of apples. Emma quickly ran over and offered to help. The woman smiled and said, "Thank you, dear. Not many young people are so kind these days. What is your name?" "My name is Emma," she replied. "I love helping people and learning new things." The woman laughed gently. "You remind me of myself when I was young. I've had many adventures in my life and learned many lessons. If you'd like, I can share some of my stories with you." Emma's eyes lit up with excitement. "I would love that," she exclaimed. That evening, Emma visited the woman's house. It was small but filled with strange objects from different places. Maps, shells, and even a small golden compass. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Turner and began telling Emma about her travels across mountains, forests, and oceans. "Each journey taught me something important," Mrs. Turner said. "Experience is the best teacher. And the best part is, you can learn from anyone's experiences, not just your own." Emma listened carefully, her heart filling with inspiration. She decided that, even if she couldn't travel far like Mrs. Turner, she would find ways to gain experience and learn from everything around her. From that day on, Emma began to see the world differently. She realized that every task, no matter how small, was an opportunity to learn. When she worked in the fields, she observed how the plants grew and learned the best ways to care for them. When she helped her mother cook, she experimented with flavors and spices, discovering how they changed the taste of food. One afternoon, Emma saw a group of children playing near the river. One of the boys was trying to build a small boat using sticks and leaves. The boat kept sinking, and the boy looked frustrated. Emma approached him and said, "Maybe you can try using something lighter, like pieces of bark. They might float better." The boy looked at her skeptically but decided to try her idea. To his surprise, the bark floated. He smiled at Emma and said, "Thanks. How did you know that would work?" Emma shrugged. "I didn't. I just thought about how the leaves float on the water and guessed it might work the same way." Word began to spread about Emma's clever ideas. Villagers started coming to her for advice. Some asked her how to fix broken tools, while others wanted tips for planting crops. Emma didn't always have the answers, but she listened carefully, thought about what she had learned, and tried to find solutions. One evening, Mrs. Turner visited Emma's house. She brought a small notebook as a gift. "Write down everything you learn," Mrs. Turner said. "One day, these notes might help someone else." Emma was touched by the gift. She promised herself she would fill the notebook with all her experiences and lessons. Little did she know, this small notebook would one day change her life. As weeks turned into months, Emma's notebook began to fill with notes, sketches, and ideas. She wrote about how to fix a torn basket, how to find clean water, and even how to calm a scared animal. Her notebook became her treasure, and she carried it with her everywhere she went. One day, a traveling merchant came to the village. He set up a colorful stall filled with fabrics, tools, and strange gadgets Emma had never seen before. The entire village gathered around, curious to see his goods. Emma couldn't afford to buy anything, but she was fascinated by the merchant's stories of faraway places. The merchant noticed Emma watching and said, "You seem curious, young lady. Do you have any questions?" Emma hesitated, then asked, "How do you know so much about all these things?" The merchant smiled. "Years of experience. Traveling, making mistakes, and learning from them. Every place I visit teaches me something new." Emma's eyes lit up. "I want to learn too, but I've never left this village." The merchant chuckled. "You don't have to travel far to learn. Life teaches you lessons wherever you are. The key is to pay attention and never stop asking questions." Emma nodded. His words reminded her of what Mrs. Turner often said. She decided to show the merchant her notebook. "I've been writing down what I learn," she said shyly. The merchant flipped through the pages, impressed by Emma's careful observations and notes. "This is remarkable," he said. "You're already on the path to becoming wise. Keep this up, and one day people will come to you for advice." Emma felt a surge of pride. She realized that even though she hadn't traveled like the merchant or Mrs. Turner, her experiences were valuable. She decided to work even harder to learn and grow. After the merchant left, Emma felt more motivated than ever. She started paying closer attention to everything around her. When it rained, she studied how water flowed through the fields. When the sun set, she noticed how shadows changed as the light faded. Every small detail seemed like a lesson waiting to be learned. One morning, Emma heard a loud commotion near the village square. A cart carrying supplies had broken down, and the villagers were struggling to fix it. The wheel was stuck, and no one could figure out how to get it moving again. Emma approached cautiously, holding her notebook. She observed the problem for a moment and then said, "Maybe we can use a long stick as a lever to lift the cart and set the wheel free." The villagers looked at her skeptically but decided to try her idea. With some effort, the cart was lifted and the wheel was fixed. Everyone cheered, and the owner of the cart thanked Emma. "You're a smart girl," he said. "How did you think of that?" Emma smiled. "I remembered seeing a farmer use a stick to lift a heavy rock. I thought it might work here too." Word of Emma's problem-solving skills spread beyond the village. Travelers passing through began seeking her advice. Some offered her small gifts in return, like a handful of seeds or a shiny stone. Emma added these items to her collection, each one reminding her of the lesson she had learned. One evening, Mrs. Turner visited Emma again. "I hear you've been helping a lot of people," she said proudly. "How does it feel?" Emma thought for a moment and replied, "It feels good, but I still have so much to learn." Mrs. Turner nodded. "That's the right attitude. The moment you think you know everything, you stop growing." Emma promised herself she would never stop learning. She knew that every day brought new challenges and opportunities to grow. As Emma's reputation grew, a noblewoman from a nearby town heard about her. One day, the noblewoman arrived at the village with her servants. She approached Emma and said, "I've heard about your clever ideas. I need your help." Emma was surprised but curious. "What do you need, my lady?" The noblewoman explained. "I'm organizing a large feast for my guests, but there's a problem. The stream near my estate has dried up, and we need water to cook and clean. Can you think of a way to solve this?" Emma thought for a moment and then said, "We can dig a small trench to redirect water from another stream nearby. It might take some work, but it's possible." The noblewoman was impressed. "If you can make this work, I will reward you generously." Emma gathered some villagers to help her. With their combined effort, they dug the trench over 2 days. Finally, water began flowing to the estate, and the noblewoman's problem was solved. She kept her promise and gave Emma a beautiful silver necklace as a reward. When Emma returned to the village, she felt proud, but also humbled. She realized that teamwork and persistence had made the solution possible. She wrote about the experience in her notebook, adding another valuable lesson to her collection. That night, as Emma looked at the necklace, she thought about how far she had come. She remembered her earlier days of feeling small and unsure of herself. Now she was someone people trusted and admired. But Emma knew this was only the beginning. There was still so much to learn and so many ways to grow. Her notebook was nearly full, and she decided she would start a new one soon. This small book had become a symbol of her journey, a reminder that every experience, no matter how small, could teach her something important. One morning, as Emma walked through the village, she saw a young girl sitting alone, looking sad. Emma approached her and asked, "What's wrong?" The girl wiped her tears and said, "I made a mistake while helping my father in the fields. I ruined some crops, and now he's angry." Emma sat beside her and said, "I've made many mistakes too, but each one taught me something important. Mistakes are just steps on the path to learning." The girl looked up at Emma. "Really? But I don't know how to fix this." Emma smiled and said, "Let's go see your father together. Maybe we can find a way to make it better." They walked to the fields, and Emma spoke with the girl's father. Together, they came up with a plan to replant some of the crops and use leftover seeds wisely. Hope you enjoy this story. Please subscribe this channel for more videos.